Warsaw, the capital of a modern European country, is absolutely exceptional in terms of environmental qualities, due to the neighbourhood of the mighty Vistula River and the surrounding non-developed land. You can just go out of your house to the Vistula and enjoy the beauty of your homeland's nature. Foreign visitors come from Europe to feast their eyes on the wealth of natural beauty, while we can just take a walk to enjoy that blessing. Let's go to the Vistula and have a look at the riverine environment. The Vistula of Warsaw. You don't have to go out of downtown Warsaw to find secluded places that make you feel like an Amazonian rainforest. Portions of river where only a trained eye of a civil engineer can distinguish traces of regulation works are stretching north and east of the city centre. The Vistula River has been contained with embankments, yet it retains its primeval aspect. Like centuries ago, the river is washing the slopes, building islands and sandbanks. The main stream is forking between them. Rapids alternate with stagnant water in belts of land, of which some are sandy and only slightly elevated above the waterline, while other, more permanent, are overgrown with a dense riparian vegetation. Diverse habitats are home to thousands of species. As usual, birds are the most eloquent animals to mark their presence. Diverse habitats can be encountered on the banks of the Vistula. What we see is actually a cross-section, from wetland habitats at the bank of the river to very dry ones at the embankment, overgrown by rose and hawthorn bushes, as you can see over there. Occasional floods which may reach the embankments control their growth so that not all of them are able to survive. Normally open land is located behind the embankments. In the past it was meticulously mowed and grazed, but now is often left fallow and overgrows with trees and shrubs. This is the first habitat that it deserves our attention. A marsh warbler is likely to thrive in that goldenrod bush. This bird of genus Acrophelas is quite unusual in terms of its head shape, which is pointed. This may help the bird to move across plants. Marsh warblers build a nest by interweaving plant shoots, which they can then soak to this end into a couple of upright goldenrod or other plant twigs. The nest looks like a basket woven into the twigs. Marsh warbler imitates other bird songs. If someone who is well acquainted with bird song hears on the Vistula a strange call, which he doesn't understand and is unable to identify the bird, then most probably he heard a marsh warbler. A specific marsh warbler was found to have about 200 calls of different bird species in its repertoire. These birds are busy with nest building. I'd better not stay here for too long. This lush meadow, rich in animal and plant species, bustling with insect life, is ideally suited for corncrakes. This bird is absolutely unusual in that it can move across such a high grass almost imperceptibly. Corncrake presence testifies to the excellent condition of the habitat. No wonder then that the corncrake is the apple of the environmentalists' eyes in the EU. Meadows with a corncrake population are subject to special protection measures. Occasionally, people call me to complain. Dr. Kruszewicz, this bird is a nuisance to me. In fact, corncrakes often call at night. The bird has a metallic, monotonous call, always the same voice. I just can't sleep because of it. I'm asking then if the call sounds like crex, crex. Precisely, that's it. Corncrake's Latin name, crex crex, is onomatopoeic, or derived from its voice. The corncrake is a persistent caller, albeit it doesn't sing. It is a rail rather than a songbird, and only songbirds are capable of singing. On the other hand, its call is certainly a song equivalent, as it is a breeding call of a male by which the bird is marking its territory, while attracting females at the same time. Corncrake is not a songbird, at least formally, unlike its frequent neighbour, the grasshopper warbler. But is that call a song? Even some songbirds produce sounds that are monotonous and unpleasant to the ear. Take the river warbler. This bird is unusual, but its song sounds more or less like z-z-z, just as if you would attempt to cut something quickly using rusty scissors. The male sings monotonously and maybe unpleasantly, but persistently, for as long as half an hour. A male singing for 45 minutes or an entire classroom lesson was reported. Some birds are poor but persistent singers. A beautiful bird called red-backed shrike can be spotted in clusters of bushes, especially thorny ones like the rose over there, but also hawthorn, blackthorn or wild pear trees that occur in slightly sheltered, sunny and drier places. It is the smallest of our shrikes. The barred warbler, Poland's largest warbler, often accompanies the red-backed shrike in stands with sallow, willow and more abundant plants. The two species often thrive side by side because the barred warbler may benefit from the protection offered by the red-backed shrike. As a relatively aggressive bird, the latter species is vital to the habitat it is living in. Thanks to its aggressive nature, small birds may nest in its immediate proximity and benefit from its protection. The red-backed shrike is a bird of prey, foraging on big insects but capable of killing a small mouse or a lizard. Bushes like this one in the inter-embankment area are worth observing, as red-backed shrikes are likely to be spotted there.
Możemy obserwować gąsiorki.
Just like elsewhere in nature, there are no clear-cut boundaries between these habitats. The song of the common rosefinch is often heard at the gentle transition from open land to dense riparian forest. The rosy carmine male is a most colourful bird that can be spotted on the Vistula River. Riparian forest is the most dynamic habitat in our climate zone. Botanists compare it to the tropical rainforest. The flooding Vistula leaves fertile nitrogen and phosphorus-rich sediments, a kind of rocket fuel for the plants. Hop shoots are capable of growing a dozen or so meters in length annually there. Above ground, the bines die in autumn, but only to restart the race for light in the spring. The competitors abound, from grass and nettles to huge willow or poplar trees. Everyone attempts to gain as much as possible of the life-giving rays. Life is short but intense in the riparian forest.
Łęgi to specyficzne formacje.
Riparian forests are most valuable and uncommon plant communities based on several poplar and sallow species.
Na wierzbach.
The most important feature of riparian forests is that they are subject to flooding. The trees are able to survive intermittent flooding, especially in springtime, but there is a lot of dead wood there. Various insects forage on the dead wood. The insects attract woodpeckers. Woodpeckers mean holes in the trees and, consequently, hole-nesting birds. A great many different bird species can be observed in a riparian forest like this one. Let's start with woodpeckers, the riparian and building developers. Each year they excavate a new hole. Tits, nuthatches and starlings will use the abandoned holes for years. As many as 7 out of 10 European woodpecker species can be spotted in riparian forests on the Vistula. The black woodpecker is the largest of them. And the smallest is the lesser spotted woodpecker, with its body size slightly bigger than that of a sparrow.
Dzięcioł zielony tak naprawdę nie.
In fact, the European green woodpecker is not looking for insects in the wood. This bird commonly forages on the ground. If the wood is really rotten and open, a green pecker will certainly appear there to feed on ants. The green woodpecker cracks open the rotten wood, wherein the ants build their colonies. In a riparian forest, ants can hardly survive in holes made in the ground, as they are frequently flooded and submerged in the water for very long periods. On the other hand, numerous ant species live in rotten wood. The green woodpecker survives by foraging on the ants. Food is abundant in the summer, but then comes the winter. The green woodpecker is a sedentary bird and must find food in the winter and relies on ants. In order to establish its presence in the summer, when it is hardly visible, whistling its call is a good idea. If a male is there, it will certainly appear soon. Hole-nesting birds account for just a small part of all species thriving in a riparian forest. Due to the abundance of food and hiding places for resting and nesting, bird densities are, from the ground floor to the attic in the tree crowns, higher than elsewhere. Each level has its specific residence. Common kestrels occur on the highest level at poplar treetops. Penduline tits build their nests on a lower level amongst willow branches. The structure, made of willow down and fibre, looks like a slipper hanging at twig ends. Unwanted guests are kept away while nestlings enjoy warmth and comfort of this cradle-like nest. The thick shrubs below are home to blackbirds and garden warblers. Finally, entangled grass and branches at the bottom just above the ground are ideally suited for wrens, robins and nightingales. We will certainly track mallards and moorhens on the oxbows. It would take too long to name all that avian menagerie, as several tens of bird species thrive in riparian forests. The owner of each avian territory with his loud song announces that the site is occupied. As a result, a never-ending concert by thousands of throats resounds in riparian forests in the spring. Those interested in bird voices should arrive early in the morning in a riparian forest on the Vistula. An exceptional bird concert will await them there. Nightingales are the first birds to start singing, followed by the very loud common chaffinch and common starlings. The latter birds are quite unusual in this environment, as starlings normally avoid timberland, while in the riparian forest on the Vistula they are a common or even abundant species. It is recommended to start learning birds' voices early in the spring so as to distinguish the songs of successive returning birds that join the concert, beginning with the commonest species, such as great or blue tits, quite noisy over here. Less birds sing at noon, but you can still hear the golden oriole, a relatively common species in the riparian forests. The yellowhammer's voice can be heard in more isolated places at the edge of the riparian forest. We have just heard the blackcap's song. The avian concert is really impressive here. We are leaving the riparian forest now. It's time to look at the river from a different perspective. We are in front of a precipitous slope, another site of importance to the Vistula birds. Sand martins breed in colonies there. The nests are hidden in holes made in loam and sand. Even wilder, secluded areas can be found where the river divides into arms. Beavers, normally strictly nocturnal animals, are also active in daytime there. An otter can also be spotted. Maybe it's living in a hole made by the beavers. There are reported cases of concurrent beaver lodge sharing by the two animals in Vistula River escarpments. The river arms offer excellent kingfisher watching opportunities. We are heading for the sandbanks that are located between the main streams. That habitat and its associated species are the chief characters of this story about Vistula River birds. The picture of the river would be incomplete without them. You can see different rivers when travelling across Europe, but none of them is similar to the Vistula. A single video frame or a picture is enough to recognise our largest river, as sandbanks are the specific trait of the Vistula. The banks may vary from transitional, permanent, elevated to overgrown by vegetation, or sandy, but all of them play an important role. Last but not least, they are just beautiful. In this specific place the water is as warm as soup. Animal life is bustling there. Crustaceans abound and the small fish come to find food and warm water. In a deeper and cooler place they would face predators and hunger, as food is often scarce there, while here they have everything they need.
a tutaj jest wszystko.
Take the little tern, a rare species in Europe, which is frequently spotted on the Vistula. It can hardly forage in the deep, fast-flowing water, as small fish are not present there at the surface. This small, light bird is not able to make deep dives. Places like this one are its only foraging grounds. Had it not been for this sandbank, little terns would be unable to find food. This is a lush foraging ground, uncovered, exposed, washed away and renewed, a very dynamic place. Winged birds can move from one food-laden table to another. Once on the shore, we notice a lot of footprints. This sandbank has been literally trodden by the birds. You can spot feathers and feces, as it is a bird molting season. They just take a rest. Had it not been for that sandbank, they would not have a resting place. Let's first introduce the tiniest sandbank hosts. This is the little ringed plover. And that is a common ringed plover. If they stop moving for a while, we can have a closer look at them to identify some small patterns that help tell them apart. The problem is that they hardly stop moving. At last, they don't move. Both of them in one frame is a bonus. You can see that the birds are obviously of a different size. The little ringed plover sports a yellow eye-ring, while the common ringed plover has a two-colour bill. A few metres away, other sandbank residents are posing just like bird atlas models. These are little stern and common stern. The identification is straightforward here. The one with the white forward is the little stern, the smallest of all Polish sterns. The common stern is much more frequently observed. It nests mostly on the rivers, but is also found at large ponds or even gravel pits. Black-headed common herring or Caspian gulls are common at sandbanks. These are certainly the most eloquent residents of Vistula Island.
Gniazdowanie na takiej łasze piaszczystej.
Nesting at a sandbank requires a number of adaptations. One of them, probably the most important, is the approach to nest building, or in fact not building them at all. Both little ringed and common ringed plovers just make a small hole in the sand and lay their eggs there. The eggs are spotted in the colour of sand and stones you can see here, so that they are hardly discernible. This strategy is intended to prevent a predator, a large gull or a crow, from spotting the eggs. Plovers leave the nest almost instantly and warn each other. A nesting bird leaves the nest so that the eggs are almost unnoticeable, as everything around looks alike.
Wszędzie wszystko wygląda tak samo.
Nesting at a sandbank is prone to some risks that we are hardly aware of. I'm standing here, but from time to time I have to move my feet because the sand is getting really hot, up to 50 or so degrees centigrade, or even as much as 60 degrees according to some reports. The sand just burns your feet. Now a man enters the sandbank, unaware that it is the home of a nesting colony of common ringed plovers, with hundreds of open nests.
I teraz wchodzi na taką łachę człowiek.
He's camping there, fishing, sunbathing and having a good time. I was told stories that a man was just happy to see the birds flying around him and singing. In fact, their eggs face a huge danger. I have to shuffle my feet because the sand is really hot. Birds' eggs in the sand also get hot in the sand if the weather is sunny. If you look closer at common ringed plovers on such a hot day, you will certainly notice that they are cooling the eggs, keeping them in shadow rather than incubating them, in order to prevent overheating, as the embryo dies at a temperature over 43 to 45 degrees centigrade. Any sandbank with a nesting river bird population should be subject to protection.
Związane z rzeką powinny być objęte ochroną.
The presence of these crows is not accidental. They see a man has entered the sandbank, the birds left their nests and are hovering around. The birds are afraid of man, so they will not return to their nestlings and nests. The crows are just waiting for an opportunity when the man is away and the plovers are still in the air. Then they come and prey on nestlings or eggs. Needless to say, staying at a sandbank in the breeding system is very dangerous to the birds, so we'd better get away from this place. Plovers, sterns and gulls are common but not the only residents of river sandbanks. The common sandpiper can be easily spotted at the contact of water and land. Spotting an oyster catcher is quite an achievement. Birdwatching opportunities increase late in the summer when migratory birds appear on the river. The Vistula is also an important migration corridor for species other than birds. The non-developed banks allow for unrestrained migration of elks and occasionally such rarities as a wolf or lynx. In search of a wild environment here in Warsaw, you can go north of the city to the Ławice-Kiełpińskie Reserve, wherein the Vistula River looks really wild, or to the Wyspy Zawodowskie, south of Warsaw, to see fantastic riparian forests and extensive sandbanks with gull and tern nests. You can also take a bus, tramway or a bike in the city centre to go to the Vistula to discover an unusual place, just to forget that you are still in the centre of a large city, a wilderness-like place within the reach of a short trip. The city centre is not necessarily a less interesting place. Birds are accustomed to human presence. You can approach them closer than elsewhere. Observations in the city are an excellent opportunity for learning how to identify species. Sometimes you get as much as 5 different species in your binocular vision field. Occasionally you may observe some interesting behaviour too. This crow is attempting to break a clamshell against the stones in order to get into the savoury content. These behaviour patterns testify to the exceptional intelligence of corvids. The environment of the Vistula River is really surprising. The most assiduous observers are rewarded with real rarities, as birdwatchers say. Breathtaking are encounters with ospreys taking a break on their migration path, with the migrating Caspian tern, or listening to a bluethroat sitting at the edge of riparian forest. The more time spent in the field, the more opportunities for interesting observations you get.